Am I audible? Okay. So hello, everybody. Welcome to this talk on Introduction to APIs and how to make your own APIs. So before getting into as to what APIs are and how you can make your own simple CRUD API in Flask, I would like to introduce myself as to who am I. I'm an SD intern at ZopSmart, currently working on Golang. And I'm a final year engineering student at Rama Institute of Technology, and I'm doing my bachelor's in information science and engineering. Here are my LinkedIn, GitHub, and Twitter handles. So if anybody wants to connect for the project or the chat, please feel free to ping me. So that's about me, and that's about as to what the title of this webinar is. Now I'll request Shubhi to share on the chat a link. So Shubhi, can you share the chat on the can you share that link on the chat? Yeah. So as you can see that Shubhi has shared the link on the chat. So all of you can please open this link. Yeah. So if you open this link basically has like all whatever the material that you need during this webinar to interact with APIs. So before starting off, I would request all of you to download a tool called as Postman. It will be very helpful for interacting with APIs. So all of you please put Postman in download, and then we can go ahead and get started. Okay. So hoping that I'm clear now, I'll start the webinar. So before even starting, let's first look about as to what this talk is about. So in this talk, we'll be covering as to what APIs are, why do we need APIs, and how they can change your life. And when I say they can change your life, I do mean it. Third, what are the types of APIs that are out there? Fourth, exploring some public APIs. We'll explore a cool Razorpay API and a blockchain API. And understanding REST, or what is representational state transfer exactly. And we'll be writing our own simple CRUD API in Flask. Now, as we talked about, what is this talk about? It's very important to know what is this talk not about. As APIs are a very wide topic, we can't cover everything in this webinar. So this talk is specifically not about best practices around API design. That's an altogether different domain in itself, and we can have the talk sometime later. This talk is not about API security, and this talk is not about how to scale APIs. So with that in context, let's move forward. So before even understanding as to what an API is, let's look at who uses APIs. So what I want you guys to do is to put in the chat some of your favorite companies. Like just put it in the chat which companies do you like. I can see the chat, so you can put some of your companies that you like on the chat. I didn't get any reply still. Can you put any company that you're a fan of? Flipkart, Amazon, awesome. Anybody else? Okay, so we have two replies. One is Flipkart and another is Amazon. So all of these companies have their APIs, right? So as they replied, Flipkart and Amazon are there. Let's look your favorite companies. Let's go with the fan thing. Facebook has their own developer APIs. Apple has their developer APIs. When it comes to Amazon, even they have their developer APIs. Microsoft has their developer APIs. And then even Google has their developer APIs, right? So yeah, Facebook, a very famous API that's recently released by Facebook is the Instagram API. You can use API to post content on Instagram and so on, right? And even if you go to Microsoft has various Azure Cognitive Service APIs. When it comes to Google, we use their APIs every day. you use any app that uses Google Maps, it's either the Google API or the Map My India API. So APIs are everywhere. You name a company, and most probably they have either their public API or they definitely use APIs. So with that in context, as to the companies that are using APIs, let's look at as to why do we need APIs exactly. We need APIs because they can change your life and they're everywhere. You name any software that doesn't use APIs. Any real world software definitely uses APIs. Now let's look at some of the example capabilities of APIs. Suppose you're making your next $1 billion idea tomorrow, and you need to integrate a messaging system for it. Obviously, you can't go ahead and write all the code you need to send a message, right? You can easily use a Twilio API. Suppose your $1 billion idea becomes a $1 trillion idea now, and you need an IVR system to handle the customer support. You can use the Twilio API to make an IVR system in minutes. Next, your idea needs a payment system so that customers can pay. You can use the PhonePe public API, the Google Pay public API, the Stripe API, and so on. You want to book tickets, you can use a lot of APIs that are provided by websites like Indigo, SpiceJet. I'm talking about flight tickets here. Suppose now you don't know machine learning, which is the next big thing, right? And you want to be ahead of the curve and give some machine learning capabilities to your users. You can use some machine learning APIs in the backend, and they'll do the hard work for you. So with that in context as to what APIs can do for us and how they can change our life, let's now go ahead and understand as to what exactly APIs are. So before diving into what an API is, let's start with the conventional Wikipedia definition of an API. The conventional Wikipedia definition of an API says, an application programming interface is an interface that defines interactions between multiple software applications or mixed hardware software intermediaries. This looks complex, right? Like it is difficult to understand at the first go. So let's modify API a little bit, and we'll come back to this explanation, to this definition after I explain. So, okay. So in any company, how APIs basically are used is, so there are two categories of developers. I won't say it as categories, but there are two kinds of developers. One will be the front-end developers and the other will be the back-end developers. So for example, you're making a website like Amazon. So the front-end or the UI part of it will be made by the front-end developer, and the APIs that we are talking about will be made by a back-end developer. So all the time, these front-end developers are like, backend developers, please give us the API, give us the API. And the backend developers are like, be prepared, API is coming. Now, with that in context, let's start with APIs. So as we know, API is application programming interface. Let's reverse it. It's an interface used by the programs to interact with your applications. Now, what does interface exactly mean? What does programs and application here mean? As I told previously, suppose you're making your own next $1 billion idea and you need a SMS service for it. So all you need to do is to interact with the code already written by the Twilio developers, and you just interact with it. So you are just interacting with it. That's how the interface comes into picture. And you can build your own application. That's how it's an application programming interface. Now, this interface word, let's dive a bit deep on as to what exactly interfaces are. We have heard interfaces quite a bit around GUI, something called as the graphical user interface, and the CLI, something called as the command line interface, right? So command line interface, basically, it's an interface for allowing us to execute commands on our system. Or the graphical user interface is an interface for allowing us to talk to our system, right? So in conclusion, anything that we interact with and we do not care about how it works internally is what exactly an interface is for the user. Now consider with the SMS sending example, right? You're just using the Twilio API to send an SMS. You do not know how it works internally. all you're doing it using the API, the hard work is already done by the Twilio developers and your task gets done. So that's the power of APIs. Now, with that in context as to what APIs are, I I want to I want to shout out in the chat as to how many of you understood what exactly an API is. Anybody in the chat, can you reply as to if you understood what APIs are? Like a simple yes or no would work, or else I'll give more examples. I'm waiting for the responses. Guys, let's make it interactive. If you have any questions, you can post it down in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So I'm looking if anybody can reply if you understood exactly as to what APIs are. Okay, I'm waiting for the responses. Okay, so my simple question is, did you all understand as to what an API is at least, and why do we need it? A simple yes or no would work. Okay. So hoping that all of you understood as to what APIs are, I'll move forward and now demonstrate the entire flow. And I took this meme from the post that was shared by UAceIt. This is a perfect meme to explain as to what an API is and what it can do for you. So here is your front-end developer in a company, and here is your back-end developer. And what makes them talk to each other and what backend developers basically develop is the REST API. So as you can see in this thing, the connection between these cycles is what really a REST API is. Now, I talked about backend, frontend, and as you would have figured out from the start, like I'm talking about APIs in a web perspective, like from a web domain perspective, right? Using HTTP calls. So now the question is, are APIs just about the web? Like, is it just APIs are only used in the web or anything like that? The answer is no. APIs are not just about the web. They are a lot more, right? So let's go ahead and see with the live demo a Python OS API. Now, what do I mean with the OS API? So as I'm assuming that all of you are familiar with basics of Python, Python has this OS module that we can import, and we can do a lot of system operations with it. Like we can execute a lot of system commands. So Python exposes this OS API that we can use to do a lot of tasks. So let's go with the live demo. Here I'll create a file. Suppose I'll create os underscore API.py, right? And I'll simply import OS, correct? So what the aim of this small or a simple program is to list all the files or folders that are present in a directory using code. Now, why I took this particular example is because OSs might change, right? I'm using Linux, somebody might be using Mac OS, somebody might be using Windows, or somebody might be using Solaris. So OSs might change, but Python provides you a way to interact with whatever the OS is. So now you don't need to worry about as to what exactly the OS is. The API or the OS API is doing the hard work for you. So if I want to get the current, what the current directory is, I can simply go and call the method getCwd. Now what getCwd stands for, it's something called as get current working directory. So in this case, the current working directory will be this Flask directory, as you can see here. All I need to do is to iterate upon this, right? So like it can be a file or a folder inside it. So I'll do for f in os dot list directory. So what list dir does is it's a command, like it's to list the whatever is present inside the directory, and we have our directory path. So this is our directory path, and we if I choose just print f, and if I try running this, you can see resources and os underscore API is printed. Why? Because here there's a resources folder and an os underscore API folder. Now to validate that this is working fine, let's create a file. Suppose a.txt. Touch is a simple command in Linux to create a file. So I created this file, and if I again run this command, I can see that even a.txt is listed up. Now, actually, this program has nothing to do with the CRUD API that we are going to build. But why I came to this example is APIs are not just about the web, APIs are everywhere. You are using any language, be it Java, Python, Golang, JavaScript, or anything, all of them have their APIs, right? So you go to any website and they have the play and the pause button. Though JavaScript has something called as the HTML5 media element API, where the play and the pause methods are being exposed, and you can directly use them, right? That's about the web. So when it comes to like language level APIs, here it doesn't depend on the operating system. The Python will do the hard work of figuring out the operating system and then doing it for you. All you are doing is interacting with an API. So, hoping that you understood that API as a term is not just about the web, though it's true that REST APIs or web APIs are a bigger component of how we deal with APIs and what exactly APIs mean in our daily life. But API doesn't mean only web APIs. That was the motive behind just this. So, when the question was, are APIs just about the web? The answer is a big no. APIs are a lot more than web. An example that we saw just now. Now, with that in mind, we understood what APIs are. Now, let's move on to what exactly web APIs are. And you have a context of what web APIs are already, and understand what REST is, right? So, I took the term called as REST, but REST is not the REST we use for relaxation, obviously. Here, REST stands for representational state transfer. I know that looks very complex, but we'll go into depth as to what representational state transfer means. Before that, let's web APIs, I hope you already know with the context that we discussed till now. A web API is an application programming interface that is used for the web, right? Now, coming back to what REST is. So, as I told, REST stands for representational state transfer. Representational state transfer. So, what exactly REST is? It's an architectural style that we use for the creation of an API. So, whenever you talk about REST, so REST has some. If you follow some patterns, then you can call your API as RESTful APIs. We can. What makes an API RESTful is like it should have a client server communication statelessness, and there are 6 other factors. But for that, like the link that Shubhi has shared in the chat, you can refer that. It has a link to the Roy Fielding's paper, who initially came up with this concept, but that's not the scope of this video. So now, understanding as to what REST exactly means. REST exactly means, it basically means when a RESTful API is called, the server will transfer to the client a representation of the requested resource. Now I know I just read it out. I should explain it more clearly, right? So suppose you are a client and you're using some API. So what at the end APIs do for you is they help you get some data at the end or some information at the end. So we can call that information as a resource that's presented somewhere on the server. And a client needs a representation of that, right? So now if you look at this line, the server will transfer to the client a representation of the requested resource. Client will request a resource and the server will send a representation of that resource. That's why the entire architectural style is called as the representational state transfer. I hope now what exactly REST is a bit clear to all of you. Can I get a bit show up of hands in the chat if REST is clear to you? A simple yes or no would work. Okay. So with the hope that you understood as to what exactly web APIs are, what REST is, let's move on to as to what are the various HTTP methods out there. Yeah, by the way, we have a live demo that will be exploring various APIs. So don't worry about that. Just let's first see as to whatever HTTP methods that are available out there. So there are a lot of HTTP methods available. I have linked a reference in the link that should be shared. But the most common ones that are used are get, post, put, and delete. Now, this get, post, put, and delete resonate very much with the CRUD APIs that we build, right? So in CRUD, okay, we'll go into deep as to how CRUD relates with get, post, put, and delete. but let's understand each of them in detail here first. Get is nothing but it is used to read a representation of a resource that's present at the server. When it comes to post, it is usually used to create new resources at the server. Like create new resources, suppose you go to a website, you sign up, you make a post request basically to send your data to the server, right? You're creating a new account for yourself for the new resource, right? And you modify some of your information. It's usually your put when you are updating something on already existing resource at the server. When you use the delete verb, it's basically to delete an existing resource at the server, right? Now let's okay, so that is what API method HTTP methods are. Now let's talk about what exactly a client server interaction is, and with this use case diagram we'll understand as to how exactly APIs are being used in the industry, and it will basically summarize whatever we discussed from the start till the end. So here it is. Consider there are a lot of flight booking websites, right? There is makemytrip.com, there is Paytm Flights, there is easemytrip.com, there is Happy Easygo, GoIbibo, and so on. So suppose you wanna book a flight for Indigo, right? So all of these clients or the services that we use, Make My Trip, Paytm Flights, and so on, need to have a real time status as to whether a flight is booked or not. Suppose a flight is being booked by Paytm Flights, Make My Trip should reflect that it is already being booked, right? So all these companies like Make My Trip, Paytm Flights, Ease My Trip are a client of these airlines. It might be Indigo, it might be SpiceJet, and so on. So what Indigo, these airlines do is they expose it with the help of a REST API. So this is just an example. Get all flights. It might not necessarily be Indigo or any specific, and definitely it won't be the route for any specific such company. But that's an idea as to what the route is. It might be get all flights, and the airline server will basically return the JSON of the flights. Okay, I'll come to as to what exactly JSON is, but as of now, we can understand with our knowledge of REST, it will basically give a representation of the resource. Resource here is nothing but uh, the data of the flights to the client. Suppose if a flight is getting booked through Paytm Flights and a person wants, and the Paytm Flights want to update the status, they can make a request on update status, and they want to get a detail of a particular flights. They can hit any route like get a flight. So with that in context, here all the clients need REST APIs, right, to interact with the resource and its status, like whether it's booked or not on the server. Now, if I'm hoping that's very clear to all of you. Now let's understand as to how does CRUD match with our HTTP methods that we just read. So create is all about creating a resource at the server that is nothing but a post request. Read is nothing about just about getting a resource from the server, that's a get request. Put is all about updating an existing resource at the server, so that's about update and put. And delete follows the same, it's deleting a resource at the server. Right? Now comes the big thing. How, okay, a lot of theory about APIs. I hope that you guys are not bored, and I hope that was interesting with the memes. So now how to work with APIs? How do you interact with APIs? So for interacting with APIs, we can use something called as curl. We can make curl request and get the API response, but that's a bit complicated to do. Or you can use a browser to make simple get APIs. But there's this amazing tool called as Postman. What Postman does for you is you can easily make HTTP requests using Postman. You can we'll have a live demo as to how to use Postman, and how we'll obviously be making our own API, so we will use Postman. So I request all of you to download Postman, and I hope that you would have downloaded it by now. And we'll be exploring what are different APIs once we get a show of hands that you guys have Postman installed. So I am waiting on the chat to please let me know if you guys already have Postman or not. Okay, so we have two live. Guys, any show off of hands to tell whether you have installed Postman or not? Okay. Oh, wow. I was not seeing the updated chats. I'm sorry. Okay. Awesome then. So I got a response from Sudarshan that they have the API. Jyoti says, okay. So all of you have Postman. Okay. I was not seeing the updated chats. I'm sorry. Okay. Awesome then. If you have already Postman installed, let's go ahead and start with our first API, right? So, okay, this is Postman. So I'll familiarize you with how do you make a normal request in Postman. Okay, I'll first familiarize you with the interface as to how do you work with Postman, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the APIs that we are gonna be working with, right? Okay, awesome. So yeah, as you can see, there's a drop down here. It tells all the HTTP methods that are available. You can see there is something called as get, post, put, delete, which we discussed, and a lot more others like patch, head, options, purge, lock, unlock, and so on. Here is where you can specify whatever the route you have to like work with the route basically, and to basically give the endpoint that you're talking to. Here you can specify the query parameters. So if you, okay, I'll give a live example here. If I go to google.com and I search, suppose, Postman, right? You can see this is written as q equal to whatever my query was, q equal to Postman. So this is nothing but a query parameter. So it tells as to what exactly the key is and what exactly the value is. Here, key is nothing but the q and the value is nothing but Postman. And then Google uses various other key value parameters like source and so on, right? Okay. So that's the first part. Another thing, when you're making post request, you usually send body as something called as JSON, that we will definitely encounter as to what JSON is, and we will work with it. So we can specify like this when we want to send JSON, JSON for example. So that's how, like as of now, that's all you need to get started with making a Postman. Correct? Right. So we'll start with Postman in next 2 minutes. Let's just understand real quick as to whenever we see a route, what's what in that. So when you see this route, for example, https api.blockchain.com and so on. By the way, where to get this link from? If you refer the link that Shubhi has shared in the chat, you can see there's a block on point number 6. There is a blockchain API, and then there is Razorpay API that will be using. So you can copy paste those links from there, right? So here, HTTPS is nothing but the protocol that you're talking about. That's HTTP for the web. And that api.blockchain.com version 3, V3 stands for version. So what these companies basically do is whenever they release developer APIs, they version it. So with new versions, they come up with more advanced features. That's what it signifies, V1, V2, V3, and so on. And slash exchange is the base URL that you interact with. And slash tickers is the specific endpoint to get information about all the cryptocurrencies. Second, okay, so I love this company called as Razorpay. It's an Indian fintech company which is doing amazing stuff in the fintech domain. So they have their public API called ifsc.razorpay.com. If you're familiar with what IFSC is, it's a code that various banks has to uniquely identify a bank or a bank branch basically. So you can just hit it and provide the IFSC code and it'll give you the details. Obviously, we'll go through it live. Before diving deep into it, let's understand as to what exactly JSON is, right? So whenever you're talking about APIs, you can't leave JSON. JSON is something that's coming by default with it. By default is though not the right word. You can build APIs without JSON too, but it's the standard right now. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's nothing but a lightweight format that is used for storing and transporting data, right? And JSON is often used when data is sent from a server to a web page. In this case, server to a web page, when you're transferring data, that's nothing but an API, right? So this definition fits well here. JSON is self-describing and easy to understand. I won't say this point is proved as of now. I'll validate it in real time. Okay, so enough of talking. Let's go ahead and talk with some APIs. Now, as to one important thing before diving deep into it, as to where I'm getting this API from or this URL from, this is the link that Shubhi has shared it with you. If you go to point number 6, as you can see on my screen, and you see this blockchain API, and you can just copy paste the link from here, paste it in the Postman, and click on get. Get is nothing but the HTTP verb that you're using to make the request, correct? So if you do a get request and send it, you can see you get this data. So what exactly this blockchain API does, it takes the symbol, it gives you all the cryptocurrencies basically, and what their price is in 24 hours, what's the volume, and what's the last traded price. So that's what this API gives you. Now, I want to know in the chat as to how many of you are able to hit this API in Postman. A yes or no would be good. Got the link, thanks. Can you hit the API and are you getting the response? If you're getting the response, let me know. I'll wait for you in the chat. Okay, hoping that you got the response with this. Now, this is the first one. So you get all the cryptocurrencies. Suppose you want a particular one, like a particular, suppose you can specify which one do you want, which cryptocurrency. Suppose here we want Ethereum USD, right? So if I give about Ethereum, it just give me the details of ETH or Ethereum. Okay, right? Now suppose I want about something else. So let's pick up this XLMEUR. I have no idea what this cryptocurrency expands for, but if anybody knows, let me know in the chat. I'll be happy to learn. So if I make a request here, I get the updated data for this particular crypto symbol. So hoping that was clear, right? Now, next, let's move on to this very, very cool API by Razorpay. Now, okay, as you can see, this is a very simple API, but I'll stress for a second as to, I really felt this API is very important. Suppose you can make your own mini application using Razorpay API, right? Suppose you can make an Android application where the person gives you the IFSC code and you fetch all the details from Razorpay and show it to him in an Android app. That's a very, very cool project that can create a lot of impact for people because it gives the address and everything about the bank. So I have an account in this bank which has the IFSC code as SBIN or 00174778. If I hit it, I get it as where my bank account is. So it gives the state, it gives the exact address of the bank, what's the contact number, what's the name of the bank, bank code, and so on. Now suppose, okay, I'm just doing a random thing, okay? I'm giving this one. So 4 times 01. Let's see which bank has this IFSC code. So, okay. So this is a bank in Kolkata near, so this is the address, it gives the phone number and so on. So now the cool part is with this app, so Razorpay has done the hard work for you for getting all the data from the banks, fetching out everything. And at the end, they give you a beautiful response, as you can see. Oh, Shubhi told a great thing. XLM is for stellar, I guess. Thank you so much, Shubhi. Nice. Okay. So as you can see, SBIN, it gives a different bank. So if anybody is interested, go ahead, use the Razorpay API and make a simple application for your users so that they can just give the IFSC code and get the details. So that's all about Razorpay API. Another thing that I would like to show is a famous COVID-19 API. So yeah, what I'm trying to show here is the power of APIs. You need not worry about how Razorpay is getting the data, but just by specifying the right parameters, you are getting the data right. So that's the power of APIs. So this is a very famous API called as the COVID-19 API. So COVID-19 API gives the real-time status of what were the cases in each country, what are the live cases, and so on. So if you see this, I'm talking about India, and I'm talking about the status is confirmed and the live cases that are there. And it gives the data for even yesterday, like 16th April, there were this many cases and so on. So now again, coming back to the point, how can you use this API? Suppose you know how to work with front end, you know how to make a great UI. Use this API, ask the person to put the name of the country, ask the person to tell whether they want the live status or what kind of status they want. They want confirmed cases or they want active cases and so on, or they want the deaths. I think they even give that. So you can just query this API, get the data, show it in a beautiful format in the front end, and it'll be a great mini application in itself. So that's how APIs can change your life. You can do a whole lot of stuff. I was very interested to show you the working of Twilio API, what you can build with Twilio. And in fact, in one of my hackathon project, I built an IVR system with Twilio. Like it's an interactive voice response system. When you call, it talks about press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for this. And that looks super cool. But I didn't do the hard work. All I did is I just used the Twilio API. So I hope that all of you understood as to how cool APIs are and how they can change your life. So now I have a small question, and if I get a fair show of hands in the chat that you are okay with it, we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead with the real coding. So all of you, do you agree now that APIs can change your life? Yes or no? I'm waiting for the response. Do you think that APIs can change your life with this information or whatever I have presented? A yes or a no would work. Oh, yes, definitely. Awesome. Yeah. So APIs can definitely change your life. They can help you build a great startup. They can help you build a great product and a lot more. Okay. So before we dive into the demo, a very, very small thing about status codes. So most of you might be familiar with a 404, 404 not found. You go to websites, they show you 404 not found. That basically means that resource doesn't exist on the server and you're querying the wrong thing, right? So there are 5 categories of status codes, and they basically one XX implies like those XX can be 2 different digits. For example, 200 here is success, like it's okay, the request was successful. 3XX might be redirection. A good example of this is 301, which tells that a resource has been permanently moved. 4XX, a very famous example, is 404, which tells that it's not found. 5XX is something when something goes wrong in the server. A very famous one is again 503, which tells service is unavailable. So that's about the status code. To give a live demo of status codes again, so as you can see here in Postman, when this request was successful, it gives 200 OK as the status code. Now suppose I go to this Razorpay and give some random IFSC code, which I don't think exists. It says 404 not found, right? So this tells that this particular thing was not there at the server, and so you better provide a correct thing for it to work. And if I again go with the one that's real, you can see the data loads up. So I hope that it's very clear as to how do we work with status codes. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to cover this as to how to work with JSON placeholder here, but just letting you know so that if you guys are trying out APIs yourself, you can use something called as JSON placeholder. It's kind of a sandbox that's there you can use for trying out APIs, making GET requests, making POST requests. I'll share this collection with you guys so that you can, for example, you can see I'm querying a specific post like post 1. If I go here, I'm calling all the posts because there is no post ID. I can post stuff. If you go to body, I was talking about JSON, right? How do you specify JSON? JSON, as I told, it's nothing but a key value pair. So here's the key, here's the value. This value can be another object, this value can be an array, or it can be an int, string, and so on, right? So you can explore JSON placeholders, and if you want the exact thing as to, you can find it on point number 7 in the link that Shubhya shared. So with the hope that this is clear, let's move on to the real coding part, like fun part for you guys. That's Flask REST API live demo. Now, let's go ahead and start coding it, right? Okay. Okay. Yeah. API.py. Okay. So with this, I don't expect you to know Flask. Flask, if you know Python, Flask is super duper easy to get started. It is very, very similar to Python, just a little bit of tweaking and no tweaking actually. Like you'll find it very comfortable. So let's start with Flask. Okay. So, okay. Yeah. Before starting with Flask, I want to make sure that you have Flask on your system. So how do you install Flask? If you go to the link that Shubhi has shared, the first point tells you how to install Flask. It tells you about pip install Flask or pip3 if you're using that. That's for installing Flask on your local system. As of now, don't install Firebase Admin. Just install Flask, and we should be good to go. So let me know in the chat if you have a Flask setup. I am waiting for your responses. Have you set up Flask? Just like, have you done pip install Flask and whether it's successful or not? Okay, I'm waiting for some responses. Okay. Hoping that you have set up Flask. Now, because time is going, so let's start with Flask. Like writing first of all, we'll write a very, very simple API, Hello World API, and then we'll make our own cryptocurrency information API where you can give the symbol basically like symbol characters like BTC for Bitcoin, ETH for Ethereum, and get the data. It's loading. Okay, yeah. So it will be installed by the time you see the Hello World thing, and then you can try it out. Okay, so let's start. So it's as simple as from Flask, we import a Flask thing, right? So we are importing Flask from it, and then out of this, we'll create our object. So using this, we created an object, and we need to pass. So we are basically creating an instance of the Flask class that we imported just now. And the first argument can be nothing but the name of the application of the module. In usual cases, when you're working with Python, it's underscore name, right? Now, to start a server in Flask, all you need to do is okay, so absolutely you can do this. You can specify if name equal to main. That's how you basically run it, but you can just specify app.run too. All you need to do is to specify app.run. Now, important part. Let's understand as to what these things are. So if you see this definition, it takes something called as a host, it takes something called as a port, and debug. Now, what is a host, what is a port, and what is the debug option? So port is nothing but on what local port do you want to run your server. It can be a port 3000. Okay, you might have heard of the port 8080 that we generally use, or the port 80 that's being used by the website. So here, as we are doing it locally, we'll use the port 5000, right? And we'll use the debug mode to be true. Now, what exactly is this debug mode? So when you do certain changes in your APIs, if you don't enable the debug mode, you need to restart your API again and again, which is not usually a good thing. So it's in case of development, I'm talking about while you're developing the API. So it's always better to specify debug equal to true when you're developing it, so that you can see your changes being done real time. If any of you is familiar with JavaScript, debug equal to true does the same task as nodemon does for JavaScript. So all nodemon, whenever you do nodemon app.js, it starts the server, and whenever you change anything, it reloads the server itself. So in Flask, as it's a micro framework, which is a super awesome micro framework in Python, it does that task for you. Hoping that is clear, the concept of port is clear. Why do we specify debug equal to true? Let's move on and create a very, very simple route of our Hello World app. Okay, so it's nothing. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can specify app.route. Now, what exactly app.route is? All of you are familiar with decorators. Okay, let's not talk about decorators. Let's not make it a bit complex. Let's put it in very simple terms, right? So whenever we specify a route here, a route is nothing but an endpoint. Now, what exactly is an endpoint? An endpoint here like posts. And if you go to the blockchain API, the tickers was the endpoint. So here you are specifying hello endpoint, right? So this is your endpoint. And you bind this endpoint to a function that should get executed whenever you call this endpoint. So whenever you are hitting hello, you want the index function to get executed. So what exactly is happening? So, okay, so for people who are looking at it for the first time, it might be weird, and if you're not familiar with decorators as to how you are specifying it, so putting it in very simple terms, all you're doing it, you're using the route decorator to bind this function to this particular route or the URL. So in this case, suppose I'll return simply a hello world string, right? So with this, you will be able to say hello to like a lot of people out there, right? Now, how do you start this API? It's very simple. So if I do a normal ls, it will show that it has my api.py file here. And I do python 3 api.py. The server is started and it tells you where it started. 127.0.0.1 is nothing but a local host. So as it's a GET request, you don't need Postman specifically, but we will try it out both in Postman as well as in the browser. So if I go here and type localhost 5000, which is nothing but, okay, we specified the route to be hello, it gives you hello world. Now, showing you the importance of debug equal to true. Suppose I change it by hello world by UAceIt. What it will do is whenever I hit it for the next time, it will tell hello world by UAceIt. So that's the power of this. I hope that you understood as to what exactly an API is and how you can build a simple hello world API. And now we will deep dive into how we'll be building a cryptocurrency information API. So let me know if you are able to get the hello world screen by hitting any route. You need not specifically name it as hello. You can define it on just the slash route. And as you are in debug mode, the changes will be reflected automatically. All you need to do is to hit the slash route is nothing but localhost 5000. It'll be hello world by UAceIt. So let me know in the chat if you're able to make a simple hello world API at least. I am waiting for the reply. If you're able to get the hello world screen, that's awesome. Okay, by the time I'm waiting for your replies, let's go to Postman and hit it using Postman. So if I go here and do this, I can see hello world by UAceIt. Yes. So Jyoti says she's able to do it. That's awesome. Now, one important thing for people who are using Postman web and they haven't downloaded Postman. So with Postman web, it might not understand localhost 5000 because that's local to your system. So this won't work for you, but a workaround for this is you can use something called as ngrok. I'll go into deep as to what ngrok is towards the end of the session because I think we are running late. So yeah, I hope as of now you're able to get the hello world by UAceIt. Jyoti and Tanishq says they're able to do it. So that is just awesome. Okay, now let's move on to the main part that we are going to build. That is our cryptocurrency information API, correct? Okay, so cryptocurrency information API will be nothing but we'll be posting some information like what's the price of the Bitcoin, what's the symbol of the Bitcoin, what's the name of that cryptocurrency according to the symbol, and that will be stored to the particular, what do you call it, like a session as of now, and later we'll talk about the database, the Firebase database. Okay, so when you're importing Flask from the Flask library in Python, you can import something called as a request, right? And something called as JSON. I know this might look strange as of now as to from where I'm importing a lot of all of these things, but we will use them one by one, and I promise you that you will be very clear with it. Now, talking about as to what exactly each of these are, what is request, what is JSONify, what is a session, and so on. So whenever you're making a request on the server side, I need to know what's the body that you're sending, what's the query parameters. Query parameters is nothing but the one you saw in case of Google. You do Q equal to that, right? So here in Flask, the request object gives you that. You can, obviously I'll go in depth as to how to work with the request object, but you can just specify request.json and it will give you all the body. You can specify request.args.get and you can get all the query parameters with the key. When it comes to JSONify, in Flask, it's all, whenever you're returning any response, it's always, what JSONify basically does is it serializes the data to a JSON object and nothing else. So suppose you have a dictionary here, it's better that you serialize it at JSON using JSONify. And yeah, again, if you look at it in a way, JSONify is a function that you're using, or in a sense, it's an API that you're using to, it's not a web API, obviously, but it's a language API, a language function that you're using to convert your local language data structure to a JSON, right? So if somebody has worked with Java, then definitely Java has this .json object conversion things, which you can use to convert local Java class objects to a particular JSON that you want to return. Similarly, if you have worked with Golang, you have something called as interfaces, or whenever you want to return a struct, you can easily convert it to JSON. They have their own APIs for that. But yeah, let's not go into it and stick with it. So I hope that you're clear with what a request is, what JSONify is. Now let's come to what exactly session is. Okay, so when we usually talk about sessions, it's usually in front end that we talk about it, that we are storing the user state as a session. So in this case, why we are using, okay, as of now, don't get worried about this session. Think of it as a dictionary in Python. Session is a dictionary, just that it won't reload as soon as we reload the server. But for all our working purposes, we'll be using session as a dictionary. But I will go into depth as to what exactly, why we use session initially and later on what we'll do with it, right? Please let me know if you're clear with request, JSONify at least on the chat. Yes or no? I am waiting for the response. Okay, so I hope that you are clear with what request is, what JSONify is, and what session though will cover it again. Now, okay, so whenever you work with sessions, you need, okay, in Flask, whenever you're working with sessions, you should ideally specify a secret key so that nobody is able to easily decode what you're stating in the session object. So you can specify it simply like this, app.secret key, and you can give it any secret. As I'm a local thing, you still can't do anything with my server, but I'll suppose name it as my own name. Okay, but it usually shouldn't be like that. Yeah, hoping that you have set the secret key up and you understood what, yes, we got what sessions are, Jyoti says. Awesome. Okay, now let's move on and start with our API. So, okay, thinking about our API design, the first thing, okay, before writing any code, I probably should have used an online whiteboard, but it's fine for now. So suppose you want to post a request to the server, that you'll be using a post method for creating a request in the server. And suppose we name the route as add, correct? Add will be like add a resource to your server. You want to get the request, and so that will be basically just a read operation, and you can specify the route as get. You want to basically put, or which will be nothing but update, and you can specify it as /update. You want to delete something at the server, and this you can name it as simply delete, right? Again, how do you name these endpoints is a very uh, kind of interesting topic. People have a debate in companies as to how should you name your APIs well, but that's not the scope of this video. But definitely we can have best API design practices in some further sessions. Now, with this in context that we are building these four basic routes, add, get, update, and delete, let's move forward and do it. Right? So again, how do you do it? Again, all you need to specify is specify the route. Now, first let's cover, because to get anything we should add first to the server, right? So let's cover add. Now, as you know that add works with the post method. So now the question is, how do I restrict my API to answer the request only when a post request is made? In Flask, there is simple. You can specify something called as methods, and in this list, you can specify what method are you looking at. For this particular add, I'm looking at post. Now, as I told, whenever you are defining any route, you usually bind it with a function. Now, what that function here is, it is nothing but create, right? So create is nothing but that you are creating a resource here. That's why you bind that route add to create. You can name it anything, that doesn't matter, but following good code guidelines, you should name it something that matches to what you are doing, correct? So due to shortage of time, we won't be doing a lot of if else to check if it is already present or not, because at the end we are replacing it with a DB. As of now, we'll just try to create a simple CRUD REST API so that you get started with it. But yeah, I do have code that has all the if and else there. So if anybody wants, you can just have a look at it. Okay, so just to make sure that we are doing at least minimum error checking, let's put all of our code in like, what do you call, a try except at least, right? Now, whenever you're adding a resource, now the question was, how do you get a particular resource whenever a person is posting it to you, right? So that's in something. Okay, how do you pass it is, you pass it here from the body. You come here, you click on raw, and then you specify that you want to pass it as JSON. When you're passing it as JSON, you can pass all the data here, and you can easily receive it here. Question is, how do you receive it? You receive it by something called as request.json. Request.json basically gives you the dictionary. What request.json does is, whatever you transfer from here, okay, I'll actually go to the collection that I already have. So if you go here, you can see this is the kind of JSON structure that we are looking at. We have the symbol, we have the name, and then we have the price. So this is the JSON that we are sending, and to receive it here, we can just have request.json. This will give us as a dictionary of whatever we requested, whatever the server sent, correct? Or whatever was sent in the post request. Now, because as we currently we are storing it in a session, which we are treating as a dictionary, let's extract symbol. Now the question is, how do you extract this particular symbol from this entire JSON? As I told, request.json is nothing but a dictionary. All you need to do is to get a symbol like this, request.json of symbol. Why symbol here? Because the key that I'm sending is symbol. If you replace it with symbol 1, it should be symbol 1 there. But as of now, let's take it as symbol. Right? Now, obviously, when we got a resource to be posted, we need to save it somewhere, right? Usually in real world system, it's databases. We store all the user information, all the product data, or whatever you are dealing with in databases. But to get started, it's a bit of a learning curve there. So we are using normal local dictionaries to do it. But yeah, once we are done with it, we'll go ahead with the database too. So all we need to do is to store it in a session, and the key can be a symbol here. So you're very clear that the symbol should be unique, and obviously all the cryptocurrencies have unique symbols. So that's a perfect key. And what you can store inside it is the entire JSON. You can just store inside this dictionary. Correct? I hope this is clear with everybody. And once you are done, you can return a success to the user. How? You can JSONify it and give it a message. You can specify, suppose, a message, and you can say success. Right? And along with this, if you want, you can return a status code. We understood what is exactly a status code is. A status code is nothing but something that tells whether the request was successful or not. 200 implies a successful request. Now, suppose an error occurs. It means there's some error at our end whenever it's a post request. So we can simply return JSONify, and we can simply say that messages, sorry, some error occurred. Correct? And you can say a 500 error. 500 is nothing but an internal server error. Now, let's go ahead and see if our post API works or not. So as I told, the route is /add, server is running on port 5000. This is my data that I'm sending. Okay, how do you make this data? Simple, you specify the key value pairs, you specify the symbol. Okay, now if the question is why did I make these collections before or the API request, just that so like we don't waste time in stuff that's very common, and we invest time in the more important things. So here, all you need to do is to specify the JSON. And once you are done, all you need to do is do a send request, a request. Whenever you do a post request, it says message success. So hopefully the data is in your session now. Now the question is, you created a cryptocurrency information inside a session, but how do you get it? Like, suppose a person is working on a project where 5 people add some currencies, other 5 people add some currencies. How do you get each of other data? So what you need now, you need a get API basically to read. So I hope your create part or the thirst for creating a resource at the server is done. So I'm marking it as done here. Right? Now let's talk about get, right? So whenever you talk about get, you just, as we discussed, you need to specify what route you are working with. And as in this case, it should be just get route. It should just enable only get requests. So we'll name it that way, and we'll do it like this, define get. Now, as we discussed, whenever we talk about get request, we have something called as query parameters, right? Now, suppose a person wants to know about all the currencies that exist. Then it's very simple. He can just hit the get route. But if a person wants to know about a specific currency, he needs to send something as a query parameter. How do you do it? Very simple again. You can specify the symbol and specify it here. And as the symbols like ETH, BTC for Bitcoin are universally unique, we can easily use them to fetch data from our session. Correct? So going forward, okay, initially we discussed how do you get the body, like whatever is passed from this body, how do you get it to the server? Now, another thing that you will be needing for making APIs is how do you get the query parameters that are passed, right? So how do you get it? I can simply get the symbol like request.args. What request.args basically does is it's nothing but again a dictionary that you can use to get whatever the query parameters that are being sent from the server as a dictionary. So dictionary is something called as a get method. You can specify the key. What is the key that you're sending from here is nothing but a symbol. So I can replace it with symbol. Not replace, I can put it symbol here. I got the symbol successfully. Correct? Once I got my symbol successfully, all I need to do is to check if this symbol is like if wait, let me clear things out. So in this case, crypto specific, whenever the person is sending something, this will receive something, otherwise it will be none. So we can safely do it like this. If symbol is there, all the person needs to do it, you can be like crypto, you can get a particular crypto. And as I told, session is nothing but a dictionary. You can do session of simple. And once you get that particular all, okay, just to make it again in a try catch so that we are doing at least minimal error handling, I am putting things in a try catch. And it's always good to have error handling in your APIs so that, first of all, it definitely makes your APIs more secure. So make sure that whenever you're publishing any API, do a lot of error handling there. Yeah. So you got the crypto, and all you need to do is to send this crypto and with the 200 status code. Okay. Now, suppose if the user is not giving any symbol, what does it mean? He wants to know about all of it. Now, real life example, you were hitting this API of tickers, you were getting all the data, all of it. You were getting this, and you just got, and when you specified XLM-EUR, you just got this, correct? So, how do you do it then? When the user wants everything, simple. When he will not pass anything in the symbol, all we need to do is to iterate on the values that's given by the session. So, what you can do is you can make a simple variable called as result and put it inside that. I'm returning it as an array. So you can do for value is okay, value in session.values, or you can just simply use session.values. Even that's a good one. I'm unnecessarily using a loop. So yeah, you should do that. If you do JSONify and you specify the result and again the status code as 200 because it's a success request. When it comes to, okay, again you are specifying if some exception occurs and you name it as E, all you are telling the user is, okay, I should not write it again. In software engineering, we should always reuse code. I know that reuse is different from the copy I'm doing, but yeah, you can copy that here because you want to tell the same thing that some error has occurred. Please check your thing or something is wrong at our end. Now, we are done with the create part. We are done with the get part. Now, before going further, let's create one more cryptocurrency. So I know about BTC or Bitcoin. And see, these prices are random because I am not updated with what the current prices are. So I'm just naming it something. I'll name Bitcoin as suppose 20,000 USD. It might be very different, and I'm sorry for it. So if I do this, it is again a success. Now, in this normal get, when we are not specifying any parameters, if I hit it, it'll give me both the coins, like whatever is there on the server. Another coin that exists is Dogecoin, which is very popular nowadays. You can even put that, but you can do it for yourself because time doesn't permit. So I'm showing just for these two coins. Whenever you hit get, you can see the first and the second one being listed, whatever is there in the session, because we just posted about two particular currencies. Whenever you want a specific currency, you can specify the symbol. One is Ethereum, you'll just get that. And if I specify it as BTC, you will just get that. Now, question is, what if I specify BTCA, which does not exist? It says, sorry, some error occurred. Now, the question is whether this is a right error message. No, it's not a right error message. You should return that this particular cryptocurrency doesn't exist. How do you do it? When you fetch this symbol, you first check whether it exists in your dictionary of session, whether the session dictionary or not. But as our aim here is to learn how to create a REST API and not error handling or working with dictionaries in Python, I'm not doing that. But putting it as a perspective, always make sure that your APIs have all the necessary error handling that's required, correct? So that's how you fetch a particular symbol, and that's how you fetch all the cryptocurrencies, correct? So with post and get done, I hope let's move on to put. Now, before going any further, let's discuss, let me know if you understood the at least get and post properly or the get and the add routes properly. I want in the comment section a yes or a no if you understood it well. Like if you're able to do a get one and a post one. then we'll move on to put or update. Yep, got it. Jyoti says she got it. Awesome. And if you guys have any doubts, please feel free to put it in the comments so that I can answer it. Right. Hoping that get and add are clear, or post and get are clear, let's move ahead with update. Now, question is, why do you need update first of all? So suppose you go to Facebook, right? You have a lot of details there. You have where do you study and so on. Tomorrow there's a new life update in your life that you're joining a new college. So you're updating it in your bio. Okay, that's not a good example to be frank here. But suppose you're updating your age at some particular thing while it was previously wrong. That's an update request. So you are trying to update what's already present at the server. Your details are already there, but you're trying to update it. For example, your age is already there, but you're trying to update it. How do you do it here? All you do is to app.route, you specify update. Okay, did we discuss it as update? Yes, update. Okay, so I want to stress a minute as to what exactly is this. This, what in people in companies do, they usually do it in whiteboard. Like they discuss the routes, what they're going to do, how things are going to work, what DB. And this is the real fun of software engineering. So I hope that I used a whiteboard, but I hope that it's okay for now. So update, all you need to do is to specify the update method. Now, when you're trying to update it, you need to know the symbol, right? Again, even in update, there'll be a lot of error handling. Suppose a person gives a token that doesn't already exist at the server. What are you updating in that? You'll obviously end up creating a new one. So that's something that you can easily do using Python. And I'm not going inside it because of the time constraint, but the code that I'll be publishing on GitHub will have all of the error handling done. So again, getting the symbol, all you need to do is to, again, as we followed, get the symbol, right? And once you get the symbol, all you need to do is to update it. Update it, you are replacing the entire thing. One thing as a homework I would like to give you is try exploring what's the difference between put and a patch request. I can give a brief intro about what a put and a patch is, but just to fuel up your curiosity, try looking out what's the difference between a put and a patch. What are the use cases when you use put? What are the use cases when you use patch? And I think that will be a very good exercise. So go ahead and look at it. So you can specify the symbol, and again, you're just updating it. So in this case, put, you're updating the entire resource. You're just replacing it. Okay, I revealed it. Usually in patch request, it doesn't work that way, but again, it's a task for you. I'm not going into it. So again, you can, whenever you are done, you can return the response as JSONify, and you can specify message as update success. Correct? And this can be 200. And if something goes wrong, I am again not going to write it again. Let me just copy it from here. Yes. So that's what is about an update. Now, how do you make an, okay, one thing that importantly we forgot is we forgot to specify the methods that we are looking here. Here we are specifically targeting, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, here we are specifically targeting put. Okay, give me a minute. Please ignore this. Yes, so the server is up. Here your method can be put because this is the put request as we discussed here. Now, if you go to put, you have the body. Now, suppose you have Ethereum already there, and because Ethereum is like now super popular, so let's say something happens and its price goes to 20,000 US dollars. It's a lot though, but I don't know the real price. So it says update success. Now, when you go ahead and get that specific crypto, that's ETH or Ethereum, you will see the updated price as $20,000. Again, let's go ahead and change it from 20,000. Suppose something happens and Ethereum drops to $2,000. Okay, so $2,000 won't be very clear visually. So let's say it drops to 5,000 US dollars. We go ahead and then again, if I do a get query, the price is updated as 5,000 US dollars. So you can see that we are done with the third milestone and we are able to update a resource. A resource is nothing here but the crypto information. We are able to get it. We are able to create new resources at the server. I want a reply from you in the chat whether you are done with post, get, and put at least. A yes or a no would work. Or any questions? I am waiting for the responses. Okay. I am not sure if I'm updated with the chat. Yes. So, okay. So Jyoti says, yes, she's done with update at least. Update, get, and post. Now let's move forward and you want to delete. Now, again, the question is, why do you need delete? Suppose you have some social media account and you are done with social media now. It's a lot of toxic news there. So you want to leave social media. You want to go ahead and delete your account. So you want to remove all your resources that are there with that particular company. So whenever you're creating such a request, you're using the delete request to delete your data from the server. Again, as we discussed, the route should be named as delete and the methods we can specify as delete. Right? Now, the best part is with this put, okay, what I'll try doing is, as we were doing this put, right, and we specified put here. Suppose I change it to some random get and still hit this update route. Note this, it says 4 or 5 method not allowed. Method not allowed basically tells that this update was supposed to be a put request as we specified, but the person tried to do a get request, so it's not allowed. So Flask handles that for you, but yeah, you should give better responses, obviously, but it does it for you, right? So that's a method not allowed. Now, again, coming back to a delete. So all we need to do is to give this delete, right? Now, you need to delete this particular resource from the server. So suppose you're deleting your account on Snapchat or Facebook, you're giving your user ID. So in this case, when you want to delete Bitcoin or Ethereum, you need the ID that you're trying to delete, or basically in our case, the crypto symbol. How do you get the symbol? Again, we'll pass it as query parameters. So query parameters will pass it as symbol only. And when we want to delete, if you have worked with dictionaries, there's a direct method called as pop. It just removes that key value pair. So I can simply pass symbol here. And when I'm done, I can return a message called as delete success. And again, it should be 200. And again, as we should not rewrite code, we can say some error occurred if some wrong symbol or something is sent. Correct? So let's go ahead and try deleting some resources. So I'll do a normal get, which gives me all the coins that are out there. Correct? And I get it. So all of these are coming. Now I go ahead and delete a particular one. Suppose I want to delete Bitcoin. I pass the key and click on send. It says delete success. So if I go on get again now, it won't load up Bitcoin. It will just load up Ethereum because that has been deleted. If I go again and again try to add Bitcoin using my post request, it says success. And then if I do a get, okay, it's right here. And then if I do a get, it'll give you both. So I hope even the delete part is done. So let me know in the chat if you are thorough with create, read, update, and delete, which was the aim of this webinar. The CRUD operation should be done. So we are done with create, we are done with delete, we are done create, read, update, and delete. So I'm waiting in the chat for responses from people who are listening as to whether they have done all these 4 operations? Guys, please answer. Okay. I hope. Yes, Raghav, okay. Okay. So Jyoti has done it. Awesome. Now, we have made our own CRUD API. I'll just take a minute to stress as to what you can build next using this. Suppose tomorrow you're going to some hackathon and you want to build something like some data that you have that you want to give it to the users or at the user's ends. You can do it. You can create your own API. Or inside your own APIs, you can try calling other APIs like Twilio APIs. So tomorrow, if you're writing an IVR for your next startup, definitely the knowledge of Flask will help you a lot because it's super duper easy to write an IVR. And if you want, I'll share the repository that an IVR I made, and I hope that you'll like it. Okay, so now one thing that I want to stress is, as of now, okay, one thing, okay, I'll tell you a good utility, something called as ngrok. This is not the scope of this video, but I'm just letting you know what ngrok basically does is, so whenever you're working with your friends, you are doing things locally, everything works on your system, localhost 5000 is fine. But what if Shubhi, what if Jyoti, and what if Shashwat in the chat want my data that's I'm doing locally? So all I can do is I can do ngrok, so ngrok http 5000 if I do, so it will expose my local port to the internet, and then you can use this route to basically get the data. I'll give a live demo. So suppose okay, I'll go ahead and create a new request, right? And I go ahead and go to get. I just go to get. Okay, 1 second. I'm not okay. As it's a session, it won't work definitely as of now. Okay, because it's a local session. Yeah. So we'll fix it when we are dealing with our what do you call it, database. Okay. So as of now, the point that I wanted to stress is, as of now, everything is local. This is on your system. Session is just here. You after some time will be gone. If you clear your cookies, nothing will be there, and so on. So how do you make your data persist? Everybody knows the way to get your data persist is nothing but something called as a database. Now, what database is? I believe that you have studied that in your DBMS class or something. But we are today going to look at something. Okay, so keeping in mind the time, I will try to wind it up by 7:40 or something. Okay, so keeping in mind as to what exactly a database is and how we are trying to use Firebase here. Firebase is nothing but it's backend as a service. So it provides you a NoSQL database. Now, again, coming on to what exactly a NoSQL database is, the databases that you might have studied might be relational databases. You have columns, you have rows, columns, and the tables. That's model. What with MySQL, it has kind of a collection document model. You have collections and you have documents, and that's how you store the data there. So suppose in our use case, we can have a crypto information called a collection, and inside it, right? So Firebase gives you a free NoSQL database to get started, and do Google sign in, Facebook. It makes it super easy to do it, and it makes it super easy to do hosting. Once you're done with the API, you can write it, deploy it on Firebase itself. And it has a lot of ML capabilities. So suppose you want to do some object recognition or anything like that, Firebase is always there to your rescue. Now let's come to the great part. Okay, yeah, okay. But before coming on to as to what I mean, let's start with how do you set up Firebase. So all you need to do is to go to Firebase. You don't need to do it live with me because keeping in mind the time, okay, I hope that I have met the objective of creating a CRUD API, but I'm just empowering you to use Firebase because we will have very minor changes in our code and will be done. So let's look at it. So I've already created a project, Flask Fire. So there is something called as Firestore database. This Firestore database you can use to store your data, right? So this can have, okay, so while I was making this app, I stored the data of cryptos. So this cryptos can now have ETH here, and so on, and all the data will be here. Now, the question is, how do you interact with Firebase? You got it. Firebase is this awesome NoSQL database. It explains you this, it explains you that. But now the question is as to how you can use it in your app. Okay, awesome. So the link that Shubhi has shared has, okay, this on the 10th point, it's Firebase based, Flask based Firebase CRUD API. If you go to this and you look at this code, okay, I am doing a walkthrough of the code and not typing it because time doesn't permit it, though my plan was to do it live, but I hope it would be helpful still. So if you see this add route, get route, update route, and the delete route, you can notice that nothing much changes. Everything is same. All you are changing is, initially you were storing it in a dictionary. Now you are referencing this cryptoref collection. You are referencing a particular document with the symbol that you get, and you are setting whatever whatever JSON body that you're getting. In this case, this BTC will be the document ID, you can say, and this will be the data, right? So only this line changes here. In case of a get API, all you need to change is, initially you were getting it from the dictionary session of that symbol. Now you need to call the Firebase get method. And when you're initially you were looping over the dictionary. Why I didn't use session.values directly and use a loop? Just to make it look very analogous to it. You can loop over it and you are done. When you want to update, just replace the session of symbol equal to request.json with dot update and you are done. And when you want to delete, just remove session.pop of symbol with dot delete and you are done. So the entire point here is, with this API and with just certain line changes like this, and like for example this, you have everything in a database now. So that's the beauty of how easy Firebase is to set up. Now coming on to how do you interact with Firebase, because I have still 10 more minutes, I'll go ahead and create a live project in front of you and show you how to interact with it. So before this loads up, in Firebase, to interact with Firebase in Python, Google has this thing called as Firebase Admin. So if you just normally, okay, in the link that should be provided in the group, the steps are there to install Firebase Admin. But PyPy is nothing but where all your Flask modules or packages are there. You can just install pip install Firebase Admin. So all you need to do is to have these import all of this and then provide this key.json, which you can download from the Firebase website. I agree that this might look a bit complex, but trust me, it isn't. The code below, all you need to do is to just change a very little line. Why I didn't initially use Firebase was because it would have been complex to go there and set it up. The aim was to set up a CRUD API. All you need to do is to provide the key, initialize the app, and then create a collection. So from here, the code will be pretty clear. You create a Firestore client, you create a collection called as cryptos. And if you look here, that's why it's named as cryptos here. And then all you're doing later is just using the document object to do things. Document.set, document.get, document.update, and document.delete. So even Firebase has pretty similar APIs for you. So fun fact, inside your API, you're kind of using the Firebase API to do your stuff. So that's the beauty of APIs again. Now, real quick, how do you create a new project in Firebase and how do you get that key.json? All you need to do is to do Flask Firebase live. And once this is done, you can click on continue. This is done, you can again click on continue. You can select your default account for Firebase. Once this is done, it will create a project because it will take time creating a project. I'll go to my existing project and show you where to download this exact file from. Nothing but key.json, right? So you can go here, you can go to project settings, and you can go to this something called as service accounts, and then right from here you can generate a private key. Now, again, important thing. You were like, how the only thing that was looking complex in this code is this credentials.certificate, right? So again, Firebase is doing the hard work for you. It's telling you how to start up. Okay, yes. It's telling you how do you get started, how do you connect it, and just specify your key here. How to get this key? You can just click on generate private key, and as soon as you click on it, it's kind of done. You can easily set it up. You can open. I don't want to open it because I don't want to show my public key to you guys. Uh, Nothing private, but yeah, that's how you do it. Now, once this is done, you can put all of your data in a real database over Firebase, and that's how you get started. One real quick thing, whenever you are doing this, like whenever you are developing, try creating this database in a test mode and not in the production mode, because production mode will have a lot of verifications. Test mode will easily help you get started. So that's the kind of an idea. Correct? Awesome. So yeah, 1 second. So I am hopeful that you are now clear with what exactly Firebase is, what all it can do for you, how it as a NoSQL database can matter to you. You can store all of your data here, and how with minimal code changes, you can, instead of storing all of it in a session, why I initially mentioned that you need not necessarily use session, because you can store everything in a database, and that's what you use in real life. So you can just remove this line of code then and directly store your data in Firebase. Now, question is, where do you find this code and how do you do it on your own? I'll upload everything on GitHub, though these are the links, it has all the codes that you need. But I'll again make a repo and share it with the guys at UAceIt so that you can receive it. Now, before winding up, I hope that you guys are clear as to what APIs are, why do we need APIs, what can we do with APIs, how to create a simple CRUD API in Flask, how to set up Firebase and send your data to Firebase, right? And most important part, APIs are not just web APIs. APIs is a lot more. A language has a lot many APIs. So bear that in mind and make sure that API just doesn't only mean web APIs. I hope that you're clear with the rest, what exactly representational state transfer is, and what its architectural style is, what does it mean to transfer a resource from the server to the client, and so on. One final note, try reading this paper by Roy Fielding on REST. It's an awesome paper which covers how REST came up and 6 constraints of REST, because this is something that need not be covered in a live session where we have hands-on coding, because this requires a bit of depth. You can go ahead and read 14th and 15th if you're interested. And if you're interested, you can go ahead and read the 12th one, more about status code, what all different status codes exist. And the rest of it, we have covered it locally. So, and the HTML media element API that you use for the play and pause functionality on your website. So that's all from my side. I hope that you're clear with this wonderful tool called as Postman. If not making CRUD APIs, at least using Postman itself is a great skill in itself. If you want to go ahead and make this awesome app for using the Razorpay API to give details about any bank. And if you make any app or something, do share it with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I would be very happy to use it. So I think that's all from my side. Anything I've missed and anything you have any questions, let me know. I would be super happy to answer it. Yeah, that's all from my side. Any questions, anything is welcome. It seems like nobody has any questions. Okay, let me reload my chat. Okay. Okay, so should be okay. So if nobody has any questions, It's fine. And if you have any questions and if you want these slides, I'll actually upload these slides in GitHub too. Ping me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I would be happy to answer any of the queries. Awesome then. Shubhi, do you want to take it forward? Yeah, so that's all from my side, and that's about it. Try going through this repo. It'll okay.